experienced that. And I, obviously it wasn't diagnosed. So like you can poke holes in your bag, but that wasn't diagnosed by a doctor. Okay. But I'm telling you right now, I had some pretty fucking severe disordered eating habits at one point in my life. And the impacts globally on every facet of my happiness and health was so profound. I am so passionate about avoiding that in anyone who I work with or help. That's not to say that like, a lot of people who are afraid of that will be like, never go aggressive with your fat loss diet, never doing that. It's not, I don't think the risks associated with this are about the diet itself per se. I think it's a lot about, do people understand what works and why? Do they understand principles? Like, it's not about, okay, well, I did, this low carb meal plan and that worked, so therefore that's how I lost fat. It's like, okay, so this is how we're going to do it, but this is why it works. Like, are they taught that throughout the fat loss phase? And then are they given any sort of guidance on what to do after that? I think that's something that, because of my experiences with these negative effects, that's something that I'm like, I never want to put someone through that. And I'll do whatever I can to like prevent that from happening.
Yeah. And what are your sort of methods are you putting in place? Is this sort of the thing where you're not encouraging people to track as aggressively, or you're really staying on top of people to only be super strict for a certain amount of time before you sort of educate them, and you could be like, okay, this is where how you should be focusing on tracking food?
Oh, okay. So a few things popping in my head. Hopefully I'll remember to cover all of them. I probably won't. The first thing is that the diet itself, you need to give them an understanding of why something is working. And you need to tell them that, okay, you're not going to focus on adhering to this method. You're focusing on doing something that's just going to tick the boxes that you need to tick. And that's like the principle side of things. So am I controlling my calories? And then you focus on ways that are feasible for them to actually do that. So rather than saying, and this is something more like habitual clients that I have who I don't get to track or follow any templates or anything. It's just like I have a lot of clients who just like their level is so low that it's hey, okay, we're just going to eat like 700 grams of plants a day. And like that has indirect effects on calorie consumption, because of all that low calorie per bite, food volume and
700 grams of spinach is like, not many people can actually eat 700 grams of spinach without feeling pretty ill.
Yeah. Okay.
You can smash 700 grams of spinach? Because I'm thinking of like those 100-gram bags you get, and I'm like, fuck.
Well, would we cook it?
Nah, I'm just
Wilt
saying,
it down?
because I eat baby spinach like as like a. So my thing is, I'm sort of always trying to eat enough.
Yeah.
And I'm always, if I feel naughty, I'm like, oh, I'm having pizza tonight. I need to smash some veg. I always have that baby spinach sitting in the fridge, and like Beck's like, you're fucking gross, but I'm just like.
But I bet you eat it just as the baby spinach is, and you should totally just like make that shit palatable somehow by like putting some sauce up.
But
on
if
that,
I'm punishing
cooking
myself
it.
for the pizza later, that's probably messed up.
Yeah,
Speaking about the mental health side of food.
Yeah, so I think you have to give them an understanding of why something's working when you're actually working with them. And then after, like when I first started doing this and being considerate of the diet after the diet, if you want to call it that, and post-diet maintenance, it wasn't really like laid out in a framework. And over time, I've sort of worked out how I could communicate that and made it into something that I would almost call a framework. And the best way I would describe it is that at the end of a diet, things are a little bit out of whack. I'm not going to go into what they are, but things are just like not how they should be, right? Successful fat loss diet, things are a little bit out of whack. And like the transition out of that needs to be quick with calories. So back to new maintenance, okay? But the transition away from diet things or diet habits or diet practices into a lifestyle maintenance dose of these diet practices needs to be a longer, slower transition. The problem is people think, oh, the fat loss phase is over, or oh, the comp prep's over. And then it's sort of like, okay, combined with the fact that everything's out of whack, boom, they go the other way. It's like, oh, they even say like, I don't have a disordered relationship with food. And then in the next week, they're like buying whole tubs of like,
celebrate.
Yeah. Or those, they're like, oh, I deserved it. It's a reward. It's like, you're telling yourself that you're finding a reason.
They're training they're getting lean for a goal, like wedding, honeymoon, or they're going to Europe and then they're just like fucking full English every morning. Drew heaps of beers in the Arvo. So it's like you bounce back.
And like you got to understand that you can't trust yourself. So you need to slowly pull yourself away from like using external metrics like, the the diet builders like my templates or my Fitness Pal or Easy Diet Diary or whatever you're doing, you need to make that transition slow, and it needs to be step by step. Throughout that process, things will normalize and you'll be able to place more trust in your own ability to eat without a reliance on these sort of things. And you have to be cautious and you have to do it slow and you have to have guidance along the way, because, otherwise you could potentially put yourself in that place where you've pissed away, a whole fat loss phase worth of effort. Not only are you worse off in terms of how you look, but your mental space and headspace is dire.
And I suppose you're giving guys the information to change that. But in the end, some people, you can give them all the knowledge and information they want. They just don't do it. And do you see something that can be changed? Because I know a lot of it is environmental. Like, is your partner part of this process? When you go to work, is everyone smashing bickies in the tea rooms? Like, is it part of that work culture to smash beers on a Tuesday and Friday night?
Yeah, so obviously, there are people who just never, ever listen. But I don't think you can just go straight up and blame the client or the person and be like, you just didn't listen to what I had to say. Yes, there is a point where literally, you can go to their house, sit them down and write it out in, a video and, write them notes and, make it so clear. And the only way they're going to not do it is if you stand next to them. But I think we can't just go and blame them directly. I think a lot of blame or emphasis should be placed on how you're communicating what to do after the diet or anything nutrition related to the client. And as I mentioned before, design is not even a thing in nutrition, not even you think, a thing. And I feel like this is the one area, because I'm never going to be like an Eric Helms with a PhD. I'm just not that smart, right?
Yeah,
but I feel like the one area that I can bring value to the industry is saying, hey guys, none of you are thinking about the design aspect of nutrition. It's you need to find a vehicle that you can feasibly communicate your ideas to a client. That's actually, the thing is, if you give them an hour-long podcast that you recorded specifically for them and it's private, it's like a members only thing, and you think, oh, I've done my work, I've given them what to do after the diet. But you've missed out on the fact that someone, Michael, who works in the city, trains with Angus at George Street Fitness First, who's got 3 kids and a high stress job. Do you think he's going to want to go and listen to an hour-long podcast? That, no. So it's your fault because you haven't done something that's actually ingestible by the person in front of you or behind the screen or whatever.
Yeah.
And we have so much technology to use these days at our disposal. And I just think the biggest flaw in all nutrition these days is not thinking about the design side of it. It's all about, I know more, I want to know more, I'm going to do this upskill thing, I'm going to do this course. It's just okay.
How can you fit it into someone's life?
Yeah.
And to a degree, even though you might, a lot of guys, and this is still getting results, but they personalize someone's calorie intake. It's still essentially a cookie cutter diet program for that reason. Is it suitable for their lifestyle?
Well, for a lot of people, tracking macros is suitable for their lifestyle, and it might actually be more suitable than doing some kind of non-tracking diet approach, but it's never going to be an end goal. The end goal is that they actually understand. They really need to understand. Nutrition coaching or any sort of giving someone nutrition is whether they want it or not, the client, it needs to be education as well. It needs to be a learning process too, because if they don't learn, then you're just doing them a complete disservice, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. And now I want to flip it on its head and go to the complete other side. So I guess we've had non-coherent people, it's tricky to sort of try and get weight loss out of them and keep weight loss off. You're now in sports performance. So working with guys who want to do everything they can to better their performance. Well, I know you were dealing with, let's take, for example, an endurance athlete, and you were looking at Barcelona, places to eat, you were writing up stuff for him. Yeah. Because this is a background that's very interesting to me, coming from an endurance style sport.
Yeah, so sports nutrition originally is something that I could not give two shits about. I mean, myself, I don't give a fuck about sports.
Yeah.
I just don't care. But, I've been getting involved with Alex Thomas from Sports Nutrition Australia. And the next sort of I did MNU and I did a few other little bits and pieces. And I was sort of okay, what to next? And I was like, well, I want to go to uni. But I was like, I don't want to be a dietitian because that's boring to me. I don't care about clinical nutrition. I was like, well, currently you can't do sports nutrition in Australia. So it's kind of the next thing was going and doing this because I didn't want to do dietetics, but then it's like I didn't want to do sports nutrition, but sports nutrition was more appealing to me than working in a hospital as a dietitian, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do this with it's now called the Institute of Performance Nutrition. It used to be called Guru, but they realized that was a ridiculously poor name for like trying to be evidence-based and all that sort of shit. Like when you put Guru in your name, it's just like,
you can't have it.
You're just like, you're ruining your credibility.
Yeah. Unless you're like actually an Indian guru.
Yeah. So I've been, getting into that and learning a lot about it. And I'm like, this is really cool. This is really fascinating because nutrition for fat loss and like most people out there, even like basic muscle growth is really simple. Like when you all boil it down to what you really need to do in practical terms, it's not complicated. But sports nutrition is a little bit like a step above. And then endurance, like nutrition for endurance is like, whoa, this is like...
So this is what I want to get into.
Yeah.
So I guess... 10 years ago, I was heavily involved in endurance sport. I was doing a lot of Ironman stuff, and I'll take you to Coolangatta Gold. So Coolangatta Gold is a race. It goes for between 3 and 5 hours, depending on who you are. For me, it was a 27-kilometer ski paddle from Surfers Paradise to Coolangatta, and then you work your way back via, I think, 15K worth of running, 2.5K worth of swimming, and 5.5K worth of board paddling. At the time, I was getting nutrition advice from my coaches. They never studied nutrition or anything. And I feel like this as a whole was very common at the time for everyone who was doing the Coolangatta Gold. So we carb loaded. It was all very vague. Basically, eat as much as you can, build into it until the day before, obviously making sure you're not too full before you go to bed to disrupt your sleep.
Yeah.
Then there was like a water loading protocol I was given, which included, and this is interesting, and that included like, I can't remember because, again, this is going back a long time, but it was like a quarter of an electrolyte drink a day and then the rest water. So you're gradually increasing sodium so water stays within your body. So I put on maybe, let's say at the time I was 73 and the day of the race I was 76.
Okay.
And then throughout the race I had gel packs, flat Coke, and Manuka honey in a syringe. And then the last... So flat Coke's really good because the caffeine... And, well, this is, again, what I was told.
Yeah.
And super sugary. The last 10K soft sand run, I'll never forget, and everyone told me about hitting the wall, the feeling of hitting the wall. So you run out of glycogen, essentially, and your handlers come and meet you. They sort of meet you along the run, see if you want anything. And I was overwhelmed with this craving for sugar. So Dad pulled up on the scooter. I was like, go get me a family pack of Allen Snakes. So Dad went and got me a family pack, met me 5K down the beach, and I fucking ate that thing like nothing else.
Yeah.
And then I sort of felt good, finished the race. So what do you think about that, and what's, I guess, should have I been doing, or should have the listeners been doing?
A lot of shit there was sort of right, but there was some really dumb stuff there. And the thing with sports nutrition for like more endurance athletes is it's still an order of importance, and the order of importance is still like similar to any other situation where, calories is obviously number one, or adherence even, right? The first thing you've got to consider is like when something is relevant, right? If you can't get someone to just simply eat enough and have adequate energy availability for their like demands, then you have no place worrying about like intricate little things. But the thing with more like longer duration sports is that all those little nuances that people worry about, like who just go to the gym once a day, like timing and type of carbohydrates and those things, they start to matter and start to be a consideration. And that's when you can sort of like get that element of nerd out in you and just be like, frothing over this shit.
Yeah.
Like
you can actually help people and dive into a bit more.
Yeah. And the thing with sports nutrition, I believe right now, this is my personal opinion, I think it's not really cool right now, and no one really understands it. People are like, oh, just carb load. Like, like you go just like carb load and have glucose around. And it's like, I think it can be much more simpler if you kind of make some broad recommendations. And again, we consider relevance. For most people, if you just sort of give broad recommendations or broad principles to follow, just like fat loss, broad principles, they're sort of going to be very useful and get people pretty much all of the way there in most instances. And, unless they're like super duper high level, it's like, it's going to tick the box and it's going to be fine. It's like, why overcomplicate it when it doesn't need to be complicated? And maybe, you overcomplicating it for like another 0.5% of effort is taking away from their ability to get their best training in. And maybe they'd get more, benefits on their race performance through just simply focusing on those things, sort of thing. So you got to weigh up the trade-offs of like, is it really relevant for me to sort of do this? And the main things people should consider with sport in general, I think, is I actually had 3 principles in my head, but I'm having like a massive mental blank. So the first one is hydration. And I think that's pretty obvious, but most people kind of screw that up. There's reasons why people screw that up. It can be anything from simply just not drinking enough. It can be even overhydration or not considering the carbohydrate ratio or concentration of any fluid they're drinking that has carbs in it.
So I was probably very overhydrated.
Yeah, there's so many things to consider.
Yeah.
But potentially, yeah, maybe. The next thing is, well, and this one's more of just like the cool fancy one, that's sort of the buzzword, but it definitely works and is worth doing. That's just caffeine. So are we hydrated, and do we have a little bit of caffeine? Like this is kind of like something that's less, I guess, important, but certainly useful, certainly works. And it's an easy thing to master. So I think it should be included in there.
So back then I didn't have my first coffee till I was 21. This was when I was 19.
Yeah.
So I got caffeine later in the race with the Coke.
All right.
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying I wanted, because this is, I haven't spoken to my mates who are still in this sport to see what things are like now, but fuck, some of them need to be your client, that's for sure.
I'd love to have them on board.
Mate, let me, because another guy who's actually got Kona next week is Tim Van Berkel, and he's like, we're talking top 10 endurance Ironman in the world. Maybe that's a guy you could link up with.
Fuck yeah.
Top bloke as well.
Okay, and the last principle is easily the most complicated and biggest one, and that is simply fuel availability. Okay, now that's when things get more complicated, and I'm telling you right now, almost always it's just going to be a matter of, do I have enough glucose available? That's literally it. I mean, okay, yes, we have these new train low protocols, which is where we try to increase our ability to have a higher proportion of our energy expenditure coming through fats at higher exercise intensities, okay? But, in reality, like that's only relevant for endurance events mostly. And even in that subgroup, I just don't think it's relevant to most people.
Yeah, I think people, like I've got clients that do the city to surf and they're like, when do I
that's not
start
long enough,
carb
firstly.
loading? I was like, when you do 3 of those.
Yeah,
I was like, then you can start thinking about it.
Yeah, so almost always the case is, well, do I have adequate glucose availability? And that's sort of when you start to consider the amounts, type, and timing of carbohydrates. And you got to consider that against like what activity you're doing, the intensity, how long what is the duration, and then obviously the fitness and how well trained the individual is. But that's sort of like the main principle. Like that's the third thing that, do I have glucose available? Okay. As I mentioned, there are all these nuances, train low, like increase your ability to oxidize fats and all this sort of stuff. But basically it's carbs. Okay. Just want to leave it there. Now, the final one, which I think is like, I don't think it's under emphasized. I just think it's a big factor that's really simple that people just won't you think about. And that is gastrointestinal comfort. Okay. So if your guts are effed up when you're training, like your performance, regardless of whether you're, got caffeine or whether you've got glucose availability, your performance is going to be impaired purely just for the fact that even if it's mild, you're just not going to feel your best. Okay. So gastrointestinal comfort is massive in sports. And furthermore, when you actually are in sport, your gastrointestinal capacity is impaired.
Yeah.
Right. So that's even more of a consideration there. But then if we look at long duration events where you need to keep topping things up, like if your event or your sport or your exercise or whatever isn't that long, like you've got heaps of glucose around stored all over the body. You don't need to worry about, feeding during. But I'm not saying it's again, it's like it might be a good idea, but it's not something you need to like focus on. But if you're like exercising for hours and hours and hours, so you're trying to ingest fuel, you're trying to fill up your fuel tank while you're still driving. Okay. But your fuel pump is a bit fucked up right now, right?
Some shit's gonna spill out.
It's not working 100%. Yeah. Like it's like, I'm too focused on, putting the spark in my spark plugs. Yeah. I'm not so focused on putting the electricity in the fuel pump to get the fuel to the cylinders of the motor, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's like where your gastrointestinal system is impaired. So you need to consider then things like, well, how am I getting this fuel into my body? If I'm ingesting it in something that's going to limit the availability of the fuel, because if I consume any more than a little bit of it, I'm going to be like completely gastrointestinally fucked. Then that's going to impair your sports performance. So, you're saying, oh, I got a little bit of caffeine through the flat Coke, and it's probably a better idea that it was flat than carbonated.
Look,
but there are better ways to do it.
Yeah.
There are probably better ways to get in that caffeine and that glucose from the Coke than simply drinking flat Coke.
Flat Coke. Again, it's sort of like it was like the bro science equivalent of carb loading.
Yeah.
This is like
carb loading is certainly
2000s.
right.
Yeah,
relevant.
correct. Yeah, there was a lot of, and our coaches were always like, and this is something I've always still said to my clients now, whatever you're going to have on that race day, make sure you've had it 10 times before in training.
Otherwise, you need to test that shit out.
What you're into.
Yeah.
And then another thing would be, Tim actually told a funny story when he got third in the Philippines last year to qualify for Kona. He actually did shit himself in the race, so maybe because these are guys who can deal with punishment. So for someone who they're like, oh, that really upsets my stomach, they might go, oh, whatever, put it to the side mentally and just be able to keep going, although it is slowing them down a bit.
Yeah, but even like the thought of it is taking their attention away from the task at hand. And when you're competing at these high levels, like your friend was at Tim.
Tim,
like every little bit matters. Your whole life is dedicated around optimizing your best sports performance on the day. And something like that, which is relevant to the activity itself, you want to be considering that shit, or you're leaving results out on the field or on the racetrack or like whatever.
Yeah, definitely. And you've had some good results with helping guys out?
Yes. Yeah, I'm just going to say yes.
Yeah, good.
Like, so, I've got one guy who's like wanting to compete in the CrossFit Games.
Oh, nice.
And he's
Can we
like...
give him a shout out?
Yeah, Graydon from Western Australia there.
Fuck, shout out. I thought you were going to say Ricky Garrard. He's our boy. But he doesn't like the idea of coming on the show.
He basically came to me being like, this is what I'm doing. This is what it looks like. And like, it was very intricate, and he was focusing on like all these small details. But the good thing about him is he was open to a better way. Okay. And a lot of athletes aren't, because they're so dedicated. They're like, I've got to do everything I can. I can't eat a bad food. And like, they're so fixated in this mindset of dedication.
That's
and
in
like
keto. Like guys, endurance athletes eating keto is the thing, sadly.
Yeah. I mean, okay. Yeah.
I've got a crazy story. So I want to speak about this guy because I think CrossFit's an interesting sport, and it's sort of that long duration, but obviously we know quite intense, especially in some events. But we had a swimmer on, Michael Andrews. So he's a sprinter swimmer, but still long duration day, hours in the pool each day, fully keto. One of the best in the world. Yeah,
that's the thing. Like, there are many ways. Are you saying like, am I critiquing?
No, I'm just curious
like,
because and this is interesting because he's exceptional talent.
Yeah.
Very unique style of training. Not the best in the world, but we're talking like top 10. Do you think, like, what would be your bet if, let's say, you had control of his diet and he's doing true keto at the moment, you could increase his performance?
Logically, and like, if we think about what all this evidence stuff out there is, yes, I would say so.
Yeah.
But you've also got to consider like the person in front of you. He might just like be bought into keto, and that might be his thing. And the difference to him having carbs or not might be cancelled out purely just because he really likes being a part of that keto cult. And like, you got to think like, what's the impact on his performance on the day going to be? Like, maybe it'd just be better. Okay, maybe over time you try and get some buy-in from him and say, hey mate, let's just try this in training and like see if we can, and like maybe just sort of take it slow and be like, okay, just see what this outcome is. And if it's not worthwhile or it's not positive and he loves keto and you just want to keep going, then let him fucking do keto. Yeah. He's the best in the world. Yeah. But I will say that like, you can get really good results doing a lot of dumb shit in almost every facet of life. Like, look at pro bodybuilders out there who are still doing what evidence-based dudes would say is fucking stupid. And they're obviously the most jacked people in the world. Like, you can't deny results. You can't deny like someone being really good at something. So yeah.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. It's something we have spoken about on the show before, and I just wonder, a bit of carbs, is it going to get that guy to number one? But he is sort of, he swims hundreds and 50s. It might not. Yeah. It
might not. Like, if we look at metabolism, if he's swimming 50s, I would say 150%.
Yeah.
Like on that. But then it's like in the real world, would it? I don't know. I don't know.
And then going back to the that was something in my notes that I wanted to get your opinion on. And then going back to the CrossFitter, what did you change and see in his diet that was sort of the low hanging fruit, easy to change?
Yeah, so he was focusing on doing stuff that maybe didn't impact his performance negatively, but it was taking away from effort that could be better spent, if that makes sense. So he was so fixated on like drinking amino acids or protein all the time, like through training and all this sort of jazz. And it's just like that could impact his ability to get the most carbs in with the least potential for his gastrointestinal comfort to be impaired. Yes, it's going to be small, and he obviously feels comfortable what he's doing, but he's doing a lot of stuff that just isn't worth the effort, and it's not going to make it's like on paper, it's not going to give him a positive benefit. Yeah. So I was like, let's just strip it back. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to worry about. Honestly, the biggest thing we focused on was calories. That was the first thing. Like he just wasn't probably eating enough. Okay. And honestly, can I tell you something? And we can go into like the red S thing and low energy availability. I mean, I haven't been a sports nutritionist for very long. Like straight off the bat, like there are guys who've been like Louise Burke. Like she probably looks at me and just like, who the fuck is this? Like this grok, like this kid. Like go away. But I think like from what I've seen out of the people who I've sort of worked with, low energy availability is huge in sport, and like people just not eating enough for their energy demands. And that's one thing. It's just like you have no place in worrying about all these little intricate details until you've got those basic things sort of sorted. And in this case for Graydon, it was like, okay, well, maybe let's just get more calories first. And then we sort of, we're going to have this at this time during your morning, your AM exercise. And also considering his lifestyle and the fact that he has like a job that's full time, and how can he get food in? And, is it feasible for him to come home from a day of training, work, and then a second training session for hours and hours and like be bothered to cook a meal for the next day and put it in a Tupperware container? No. So then we look at like, zero cook options, things that can be grabbed straight from the supermarket while he's like, or his convenience store, and like all those sort of things that just like make it feasible. Yeah. So we can focus on what really matters. And he's basically said, I feel well fueled pretty much. And that's what we want, right?
Yeah. And his body composition still stayed relatively the same. Yeah. It's funny.
He's trying to put on weight, but it's like,
he's just burning so many calories.
Yeah, people go through it. I've got like a guy who's doing it. He wants to do an Ironman later in the year. And it's like when you start and you look at their current eating habits, you're basically in a super aggressive calorie deficit. Yeah.
And I think when I was a kid, like I was going to school every morning, I was swimming an hour and a half in the pool, 3 to 5K. Most mornings quite intense. I'd play soccer at recess. We'd play basketball at lunch. And then I'd be in the ocean for 2 hours every arvo. Plus I was growing. No wonder I was always run down, because like, I was eating like 16 Wheat Bix every morning with milk and honey 2 at a time. But my lunch was a regular sandwich. Mum and Dad really tried to get all the information that was available to them at the time. But back then, the internet was
nothing
really
on your parents, man.
Oh, no, nothing at all. They were fucking super loving and always sort of caring, trying to... But it's just... I just wish this information was available, because there was many kids in the same boat as me. And like I would always eat till I was full. Yeah. But it's like I probably should have been eating more and like maybe... smashing Nutrigrain like all the Iron Man did in the 90s.
Well, that's the thing. Like in terms of sports performance, like you could say that Nutrigrain is a great food. Like per 100 grams, that shit has 20 grams of protein. Like, you look at Nutrigrain compared to like a muesli, a healthy muesli from like About Life and all those like dipshit places. It's like, okay, Nutrigrain's actually lower calorie per bite. So for fat loss, it's probably like there's an argument there. I don't think it's a muesli is anything less palatable, so easy to consume in high amounts. Like I could eat massive amounts of muesli, and like so easily. And I don't think like Nutrigrain in that perspective. I don't think you could say that muesli is less tasty than Nutrigrain. Well, I know it's a tough one. It's like your own opinion.
Nutrigrain cuts up my mouth a bit sometimes if I eat it dry.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
It depends on the muesli though.
But like Nutrigrain, like it's got 20 grams of protein. Like it's got more protein than any other sort of cereal-based thing that I've seen in the supermarket at least. So it's like there is so like definitely an element of truth there to Nutrigrain being like more of an Iron Man food than what like all those dipshits on like oh, it's refined sugar. Like that's not Iron Man food. It's one of the most healthy things. How did that get?
Well, see, that's sort of towards the end of my career. That's what it was coming around.
Yeah. And I can tell you right now that mindset, with healthy food is one of the worst things for an athlete.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm not talking normal person.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
talking an athlete. Now these athletes,
Yeah.
they have huge amounts of energy demands, but their downfall, and one of the things that really kills them is that they're so dedicated. And that dedication stems to, I'm going to eat clean all the time. And here you have like a boxer who's training like 6 hours a day, he only eats sweet potato for carbs. And then you look at the amount and you're like, it's like, if you wanted to ingest your required amount of carbohydrates and you were only eating sweet potato, you would be eating kilos and kilos of that shit, and your daily fiber intake would make you start coughing up blood. It's just like, it's not even feasible.
You can't
it's like
do
the
it.
only way you're going to get enough fuel for your activity, like to not be in a state where your body has to go into a more efficient mode with with what it's got available. The only way you do that is to fucking eat some Cocoa Pops and put some maple syrup on that shit, sorbet after dinner, like bagels with the jam, and like, I'm talking like, would you like some bagel with your jam sort of thing? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
the good life.
Yeah, the good life. Embrace that. But they're so dedicated. They're like, in their head, they're like, that's bad. Like, I'm a dedicated athlete. I eat clean. And then they're like severely limiting their performance because their dedication is almost like an illogical, closed-minded dedication.
And well, I suppose the added fact of social media now, and this is going back to guys I know, they're always like posting about that healthy lifestyle. They're Iron Man, they're in the sun.
Exactly.
They're going to get their organic veggies on Sunday. And I'm like, you're not eating enough calories. Unless I hope they're smashing Nutrigrain. And I think Sustagen was probably my saving grace as a kid. The nutritionist told my mum. So I just put Sustagen on my like oats or whatever I was having. Like that stuff's pretty
sprinkle dust on the top there.
Yeah. Sustagen Dutch chocolate's still probably one of my favorite drinks, actually.
I've never looked at a packet to see what it is.
Dude,
like,
look,
isn't it just some kind of like protein shake thing?
Yeah, so it's what they give people in hospital to help them put weight back
Man,
on.
I'm telling you, when it comes to like store-bought little protein shakey things, Rockabies. Rockabies, man. For most people, they have enough protein in them that they hit what's called leucine threshold.
The milk one?
Yeah, it's like breakfast smoothie thing. Like there's like no fat in them. I think there's not much fat in them. Yeah.
Oh, dude,
man, those things they tick the boxes. They tick the boxes.
You gotta look at. Do you ever check Sustagen?
Oh, look, I've seen it, but I just don't personally. I just don't like drinking calories that much, and I kind of have to force myself to do it to get enough calories sometimes. When I'm sort of like not trying to be in a state of. I'm always mini cutting, which has been my downfall. Like, it's like I pay out athletes for not eating unhealthy foods, and I'm like completely that. I'm
You're
like
over here sort of purging up.
I'm just like I literally I'm looking at Messina, and I'm thinking about, hey, I could go home and have like purple sweet potato because food for me.
Fucking shout out to you, Beck and I had like purple sweet potato and a Japanese bun the other week, and fuck, it was good shit. But Harris Farm didn't have any when we went to buy some in the purest form.
So wait, I was like, so like I look at food as how it makes me feel, right? And I feel really good about myself when I eat healthy, and I feel good about that. But sometimes having this like I'm only going to eat healthy mindset kind of results in turn me not feeling as good as I should, and that's because I'm not eating enough calories because those foods it's hard to get in enough food. Like, obviously, it's different from person to person. There are some people who need to do every single thing they can to eat less calories. But for my situation, like, that mindset is sort of like a flaw. If that makes sense.
Yeah, you've really sort of been through it all, having you with this. And guys, go back to and listen to Mac's first episode because I feel like it'll be very interesting because you tell your story more like the modeling than the natural bodybuilding, and then sort of just before the mini cut. And then it'll be interesting to listen to those back to back.
Well, natural bodybuilding, so ICN Men's Fitness, like I don't know if I'd call that anything.
Just because a bit of gear.
What?
You wouldn't call that anything
because ICN Men's Fitness models are like it's not bodybuilding. It's like
IC in Men's Bodybuilding.
Oh no, ICN like the federation. It's like you don't look like you even lift.
Okay, yeah. It's
like
the
that's
true
not bodybuilding.
Yeah, it's just like skinny lean guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like I went to the beach, and now I'm going to step on this stage with the stupid tan
there
and
are
some shorts
athletes
with a bunch of blokes.
Better. We could jump on there and just win naturally.
Yeah, like so many people could just literally just get a tan, shave their chest hair, and they'd be good to go. Like just straight out of like anything. Like they wouldn't even have to do a prep.
Damn. Anyway, so I guess next question I wanted to ask, and this is going to be an interesting one because I didn't hit you to prepare. The term superfoods gets thrown around all the time. What's your superfood for weight gain? Like trying to put on a bit of muscle, like the boys. The boys.
So a superfood, is this meaning it has to be like a minimally processed whole food?
No, it's like max idea.
Oh, superfood
so
for
like
gaining.
You just
Oh,
mentioned
fuck
that
yeah,
drink before. So
okay. I'll give credit where it's due. Okay. There are guys out there who know so much more about these things than me. Dean McKillop.
Yeah,
Like, if you ask him to go I listened to that one. It was good. He's a good man.
He's a good man.
If you listen to like that guy speak about mass gaining foods and intricate hacks about how to get more calories in, he is the man for the job.
Well, he loves, like, Will was smashing.
He's a bodybuilder. And he's Coach Will Crozier.
Yeah.
Who's also an absolute legend. Like, take my hat off to that guy.
Good bloke. Him on too.
Yeah, I listened to that one too. It's good.
He got us on that PRI bandwagon and fucking something riding hard ever since.
That's like something that I would really like to know about. It's just like, I don't want to inundate. This is the thing. I can go off to this. And it's like people doing so much education to say they're doing education. It's like, you're not going to ingest that.
Correct.
Because, anyway. I would love to do something like that, but I've just got too much on my plate.
I understand. And from what everyone has said, it's like, there's some things you'll take away from it.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's so much and like, you'll take away this much.
Yeah, so superfoods for massing. Do I have to think of one or can I give you a few?
Give me a few.
Oof. So bagels are definitely phenomenal.
Yeah, nice.
They have in excess of 250 calories per bagel, 50 grams of carbs often. And you can put some...
Oh, fuck. How did I know Dad would ring me?
Go on, Dad.
Should I just take it quickly?
Yeah.
Dad, I'm just on the podcast. You're on the podcast now.
Oh, see, if I got there at 2:30, still okay?
Yeah. 2:30 is good.
I'll see you soon. Sorry, mate. Bye.
See you, Dad.
See you, Dad.
He's actually been on the show too. I don't know how to turn the alerts off on my laptop. Sorry, everyone.
Mate, this set, like, you have nothing. I have nothing negative to say about this podcast setup. Like, it literally takes a shit on the Macabolic podcast. Like,
yours still sounds fine though. That's the thing. It's like iPhone headphones into your phone. You can record a podcast.
Headphones.
Yeah, like your iPod headphones.
Yeah.
You just smash those in your phone and hit
okay.
record
I don't
on
have
voice memo.
headphones for my podcast. So I was thinking, like, fuck, should I have headphones for my podcast? Like, is this something I'm missing out? Way off track.
Put pillows around your head. iPhone headphones in your phone. Hit record on there, or go straight into GarageBand on your laptop.
Yeah, but I got an iPhone 10, bro. It doesn't have the
aux.
aux.
Just get the dongle.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't have the aux. Bagels are phenomenal.
Yeah.
You put some jam on that shit, and you have a lot of calories very easily consumed. I think any liquid that's got like no fiber in it, with like Gatorade is even good, although the calorie content isn't massive for how much fluid you have to drink. But liquids just go down really, really well. Like just amazing cereals, because when we're thinking like a mass gaining food, we're probably wanting to just eat more carbs and keep fats just at adequate.
But something that's not going to sit on your gut so you can eat again
so,
soon.
Like if you had fats in there as well, like, the list is pretty long, right? But if you were just going like really easily ingestible foods that you can consume in high amounts and get a lot of carbohydrates in, cereals, some liquids, bagels with jam, basically just putting maple syrup on stuff or honey, although maybe not honey's not the best. Fuck.
I like the one.
Just anything, literally anything that's just like sugary, really, really tasty, and got no fiber in it is going to tick the box. Like, choose what you want. Like, if you want to have lollies, like, that's cool too. But I think like the bagels with jam are fantastic. I think Cocoa Pops with some rice milk is also fantastic. What else was sorbet?
Sorbet's
We sorbet, or you go down to Nita's in Bondi and get that shit. Like, that's primo sorbet. Just don't get coconut because coconut's fat.
Love that joint,
mate. Nita's. What do you? Okay, I'm gonna interview you right now.
All right.
If I had to say, hey Oscar, Messina or Anita's?
It's Anita's now. Shout out to my mate Wade Campbell, got me onto it. Smaller lines straight off the bat.
Anita's?
I think so.
No way. Completely disagree.
I always go down weekdays.
Completely disagree.
The middle of the day.
Mate, on the weekend, they're so much slower at Anita as well. Like Messina, they're just more efficient with their lines. Okay. So you get in, get out faster. You wait forever at Anita's.
All right, I'm going to say Anita's, or if I go on weekends, I haven't been on weekends, I go weekdays. Anita's for stock standard flavors, But then if you want something special, you see what's on that special board. I'm going up to Messina.
Yeah, so my stance
Yeah.
is the gelato quality is superior at
Yeah.
Anita's, right?
Okay.
But Messina has the fun flavors
Yeah,
and a bit of
100%.
variety, right?
Yeah.
Well, that being said, like Anita's isn't boring flavors like those traditional ones.
There's
They
so
still have
many.
like Oreo cream.
Yeah.
Cookie Man is a favorite.
Cookie Man, don't think
Very
I've had that
good.
one.
And you make sure, okay, fuck, this is phenomenal
one eats
information.
ice cream
This is
anymore if you go
phenomenal
out.
content I'm about to give the listeners
Yeah,
here.
give it
If
out.
you go to Anita's, here is number one, like the local Anita's knowledge hack thing. Get the Cookie Man sauce. Ask for the Cookie Man sauce on the top of your ice cream. 9 times out of 10, they'll give it to you free of charge, and it enhances
I'm
that
going down
that
and get it
Anita's
tomorrow.
tenfold.
Fuck, I've got a big training session, right? I'm going straight to Anita's.
Get that
I
shit.
used to smash a steak at Marcelleria and then go to Anita's.
Yeah.
And just feel
That's a
great
classic.
about
Like,
myself.
I'm in Sydney and I
Yeah.
love bodybuilding.
Yeah,
Where can
yeah.
I get a feed?
That is a good one.
Or Milky Lane.
Dude, haven't been to Milky Lane.
I've been there once.
Yeah.
I just don't really like burgers that much.
I hate the vibe.
Yeah, it's a
wanky
bit
vibe
wankery
for me.
shit.
Dude, Bondi Tony's for me.
Yeah.
is the
Oh, bro,
goat.
I'm on board
Dude,
with that as well.
Bondi
Have you ever had
Tony's-
Paul's Hamburgers in Sylvania Waters? No
No.
one knows about it because it's not cool. It's not fucking
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
Instagram and like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
in
yeah.
Whoop Whoop. But mate, they've been there since the birth of
Paul's.
time. Paul's
Okay.
Hamburgers, as classic as they get.
Yeah.
You know, they've got like 20 flavors of potential milkshakes. Classic. Like,
Love that.
Mate.
But like from the pump action. Like,
Yeah,
you got
pump
the
action.
peppermint,
Yeah.
hazelnut, malts.
I love the
vanilla.
salt. No, it's caramel, salt. It's caramel, malt, vanilla, chocolate.
Yeah, nice.
Like you can get whatever you want, and it
Yeah,
just
yeah,
ticks
yeah.
the boxes.
Paul's.
Really good chips, chicken salt,
it's
custom.
just
Like you can
classic.
get a classic burger. It's just like an add-on system, or you
Yeah.
get the works burger, mate. That's got the full feature
Dude,
there.
we had the work. So we had a place, Fishnets, in Bellambi in Wollongong. I'm not sure
Okay.
if it's still there. It might be changed.
What about Chico's? The small chicken
Look-
schnitzel burger is like the biggest burger you've ever seen.
So Chico, I don't know. Again, it was a vibe thing for me because everyone loved it in the Gong. This is going back to
Yeah,
being
yeah.
a kid, and I was a Fishnets guy because I had a 1.5 kilo burger, and I was like, when I finished training, I was like, I'm gonna smash that.
Yeah,
You had some
sounds
veggies in
good.
there. You had some white bread. You had about a kilo of meat. Like you had a bit of this and a bit of that.
That's awesome.
But in Sydney, too, Bondi Tony's. Fuck, that was the
Yeah,
shit.
Bondi
Still
Tony's.
is
It's
the
been
shit.
like 2 years since I've been there. I don't eat burgers like
really?
ever.
Really?
Yeah, I'm just not a burger guy. Like I don't really like pizza.
What?
Mate, without a doubt. Like, you know how people
So
are like,
you're
what's
a
your
dessert
favorite
guy.
cuisine?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know how everyone's like, oh, you know, it depends where I go. I just don't know. Or like, sometimes I
Yeah,
like this.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like Thai food, my 100%.
Oh, really?
Thai food, like good pad see ew, pad Thai, Bangkok bites. Fuck, this is.
Dude,
mate, we should
Bangkok bites
turn
is
this
good.
into an episode
It's
about
Eastern
food.
suburbs
Eastern
eating.
suburbs. I'm telling you, everyone here, if you come to the eastern suburbs of Sydney, Bangkok bites for
Dude,
Thai food.
I'll never
Biggest
forget.
portions. And I love it
Yeah,
when you see the
huge
table
portions.
next to you and there's like two blokes and they're just getting doggy bags because they do
Yeah.
doggy bags there. And I'm sitting there with my girlfriend, Jess, shout outs.
And you're like,
She eats
fucking
more than
weak
most
dogs, eat
dudes.
it. Yeah,
She eats
yeah.
more than most dudes and she'll polish off a main and match me in terms of food intake. And then she'll want to get more Messina after than me.
Dude, that's the circuit.
And we're just like looking at people next to each other. She's just polished off a whole pad CU.
Yeah.
She gets the
Looking
crispy
shredded,
duck.
looking
That's her
shredded.
favorite.
Yeah.
And she's just like, yeah, you guys peasant can't even finish your Thai.
You got to finish it. Weak dogs.
It's weak.
Dude, I'll never forget. One of my first clients was a Thai chef, and he was Thai.
Yeah.
And one of the first things he ever said to me is like, Aussie love pad Thai. And that was a shitty Thai
Yeah.
accent. But he's like, I reckon it's the most Australian food. Pad Thai.
It's an Australian
Aussies,
dish.
Dude, Aussies love pad Thai.
Yeah.
I love it.
I really want to go to Thailand.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love Southeast
Dude,
Asia. I
you'd be
love
let
it.
down with the pad Thai, I reckon.
Really?
I reckon it'd be better here. It's one of those
I've heard
things.
that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
See,
Yeah.
I love there's this place and I get every Friday night if Beck's away, Marilina's Pizza. It's in Cremorne. Oh fuck, I love that shit. Hey, I get the Superhouse special family size, and it's
size.
like I like pizzas with quite a lot of topping, but not a heap of crust.
Yeah.
Because if it's doughy crust, I'm leaving that shit. But if it's thin crust, I'm eating it.
Yeah.
Then they do a chocolate Belgian chocolate mousse, and I get the Mather's dark roasted peanut butter, and I go equal parts and mix that shit up.
Oh, I have two stories stemming from that. Can I just
Give
say
it to me.
personally, I believe in New York, like New York slice is absolute dog shit.
Yeah,
and I was
look, I
bitterly
can't argue with
disappointed.
you. Did you go to the place in Brooklyn though? That's pretty famous.
What's that one called? Because I did a lot of searching. Like
be racking my
people
brain.
ask me about where to eat in Bali.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, here's a list. If it's not on the list, don't think like I haven't been there. I've
Yeah.
been there, just didn't make it on the list. Like,
Okay.
so I when I travel,
Yeah.
I do my research.
Research,
Like we've got
yeah.
Tokyo in just over a month, and I've literally
I
been
sent you my list,
researching. Yeah.
Dude,
I've been
Ikinari
dude.
Steakhouse. I sent it to Berkman and he didn't go.
Oh, he's just Berkman is like okay. Berkman, he's like been working at Lift Performance Center for X amount of time, and he didn't even know about Malibu sandwiches. He's been ordering Uber Eats, Subway,
Oh,
or Deliveroo, or whatever it is, to the gym.
that's actually quite sad.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, you have like City Edge, Malibu, all these great sandwich places.
What's that
Rutland
place?
Street Sandwich.
So let's say Lift's here. It's like the next street over in like an old house, and it's a Asian place, Asian run place. There's always heaps of Asians out the front
Oof.
lining up. I ate there with Dad, and we had
I
this
don't know.
chicken
Oh,
avocado
Rara Ramen?
sandwich.
Is it like modern? Is it?
Yeah, it's quite modern inside.
It could be Rara Ramen,
Oh,
but
dude,
I know it's
was
in
the
Redfern.
shit.
But I haven't been there. But a lot of the other trainers that lift are like, yeah, Rara Ramen's really good.
Maybe that was.
I want
it.
to try
It's
it.
super close to Lift. If it
Okay.
is.
And the second story I had from that peanut butter thing is just to give you an idea, an insight into how severe my disordered habits were when I was in that state. Was I remember once, I was in this Poliquin like low carb thing, and then you'd like have a refeed. Like refeeds was one of the worst things for my mental health. And I used to train and like do low carb for like 6 days a week, and I'd be like, it's Friday night. I'd be thinking about it the whole time, and I'd be like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go get like a cheat meal. I'd go get a pizza, and on the way home, I'd be like, I'm gonna get a tub and connoisseur, right?
Yeah, nice.
And then I would be like, oh, while I'm here in the supermarket, I'm just going to get some food for the week. So I would pick up a few things, and then I would go home, and I would, I already had a whole pizza, and I would eat the whole tub of connoisseur, and I'd be like, oh, it'd be a good hack if I put some peanut butter in that connoisseur. Next thing you know, the whole jar of peanut butter is in that connoisseur. And let me tell you something, guys. Like, there are a lot of
that's
people
not
out
healthy.
there on Instagram who are like healthy. They're
Yeah.
in the competing thing like physique sports healthy. Not only is like their actual physical state so far away from that at that particular time, but I'm 100% like in terms of just looking at relationship with food alone, there are people in that space in like the Instagram thing. Oh, I will put like so much money on the fact that this is them like putting whole jars of peanut butter in ice cream, but like
just crying.
because at that point in time they're in the public eye and they're like
Yeah.
seen as healthy people, like they're not going to tell anyone about that.
No, just their partner who
Yeah.
they beat into submission.
And then you see all like the cracks in their story 12 weeks later when they're like, I haven't been honest with you guys. Like
Yeah.
last night I had like 2 boxes of Quest bars
I
and like,
fucking love it,
like
eh?
it's just like, okay,
Just chill.
this is not health.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is,
correct.
okay, you're lean.
Yeah, but
But-
so many people aspire to be them.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? And
Like,
that's
they're
why
not
I have
happy people.
that's why I have a problem with like this is a whole rabbit hole that I could rant on for hours. Like,
But the thing
and
is,
that's
you've
the thing.
been there
Nutrition
too.
coaches
Yeah.
who are literally just like bikini athletes,
Correct.
and not like actually professionals in the field. And they're like, and like the thing that really also pisses me off is when they use legitimate people, give them the idea that they're going to build a social media following off the back of these popular people. So they'll go to someone who's legitimate and start shouting them out. Right?
Oh, dude.
So, and they,
Okay, so when we've had this open conversation with Luke Tulloch, because it happens a lot with him. Like, Luke's
Yeah.
a fucking genius, and he gives out some of the best information
Okay.
out there. Some
Fucking
of
hell. I
the
love
best.
man.
And
I
we're
was
both big fans. He's probably going to win Guest of the Year this year.
yeah. It's not
Oh, there
Luke.
you go. Angus is tuning in the chat.
It's not Luke specifically. Like,
There's some.
this is like heaps of people who are
Yeah.
legitimate nutrition or like the really high level,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I've seen this shift with like evidence base has been building up. Okay, it's kind of cool now, and I've seen this thing where like people who aren't legitimate are sort of starting to interact with legitimate people, and the people who are the legitimate people are like, oh, I should this could help me to get my name out there and stuff like that. And it's awful. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Good
Yeah.
on. That's awesome. But the people who aren't legitimate are using these legitimate people to make themselves give them a sense of legitimacy.
Yes, correct.
And like signing up to a course, paying the fee, like talking about it on Instagram and how you're studying and all this sort of shit is a completely different thing to sitting your ass down on a fucking chair for hours, watching the lectures, doing proper notes, going sitting there, doing the study, learning the shit and
Yeah.
passing the exams. Like that's
Correct.
2 completely different things. But because they were like creating that legitimacy with this person, it doesn't matter that they didn't
Yes,
learn the
I do
shit.
100% agree.
Like-
It's such a big thing.
Yeah, and that's something that kind of annoys me. And I try not to be the ranty guy this day
Yeah,
because
you-
I look
you
at
may.
so many people out there who have been in this for such a long time, really wise people like Luke Tulloch, who like I look at that guy and I'm like, he's just this element of just perfection.
Yeah, 100%.
And-
He's killing it.
yeah, like
We've
everything
got a
about
guy
it.
who's like that Austin Current coming on the show.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah,
US
he's
guy.
really cool.
Yeah,
like
so
his
he's
podcasts
coming
are
in
really like
really
life
good.
deep stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
Like
So
love
he's
his
coming on
shit.
in
Yeah,
2
he's
weeks.
awesome.
And he's a guy.
awesome.
He's younger than. How old are you?
I think he's my age.
Yeah.
I'm 25.
Yeah, he's 26, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh man, I'm like, fuck. And Kyle Dobbs.
Oh,
is another
and then you've got
guy.
like Jackson Pierce, who's like
Oh, really?
a year
Haven't
older
heard
than
of
me,
him.
I think.
I'll say I'm trying to
And
look at
he's
those
like
guys in
going
their
for his
early 30s.
PhD, and he's
Oh, really?
jacked, and I'm just like, what am I doing with myself? Like, should I just quit?
See, I've let those guys go because I'm 28 now, so I'm looking at guys who are in their 30s, and then I'm like, all right, I'm going to start
Yeah.
being like them now. And I often wonder, I'm like, who's out there looking at me going, that's a good guy I want to be? Because let me just tell you something, get your fucking life in order.
Yeah, so I look at a lot of people in the industry. Eric Helms is I think, the guy that, no one's perfect, right? And we all fuck up and make mistakes.
100%.
But I think in terms of our industry, the person who's closest to being perfect is without a doubt Eric Helms. And does he ever rant and call people out? I think the whole, like, any publicity is good publicity, like get attention. Okay, there's merit to that. That has worked for a lot of people.
Works for sure.
But I think if you, like, I look at Eric Helms and the way he approaches things and how he's so, like, there's always another way to looking at something. There's always a different perspective. There's always relevance of something else that needs to be considered. And he's never like black and white. And nothing in nutrition ever is. Like, you can look at any topic out there. Anything, no matter how much research there is on it, there's always one element of, okay, maybe in this instance, we wouldn't do that. Or like maybe this approach would be relevant. And the way he's done that has created him so much longevity. And if we go back to when I was thinking about what I was saying before, where I'm like, well, this is something I want to do for the rest of my life. It's not just something I do on the side for fun and because it's a passion. Like, this is my number one thing. And PT is now sort of like the thing I do because I go to the gym anyway in the morning.
It keeps you
I like my
social.
clients. They're really
Yeah.
cool. Like, shout out to all my clients. Like,
Fucking shout out.
shout out to
Who's
them.
client of the week? Give him a shout out.
Client of the
Actually,
week.
don't answer that.
Could- I
because then they'll
could.
be
I
pissed.
could.
Oh, you got it? Okay, go for it.
Alison Lowe.
Shout out.
Shout out Alison Lowe, the coolest client in the world.
Oh, fuck,
Much
man.
easier
Your
to
other
train than my
clients gonna be
girlfriend.
Listen to this and they'll be
Let me
like,
tell you that.
oh, is training your GF is
Oh,
Beck's actually
bro.
adhering to me at the moment,
Oh,
and she's
mate,
doing
Jess.
great things.
Jess.
Jess is a lunatic.
I'm
Dude, palm
always
her off-
saying to Jess,
palm her off to
I'm
someone
always
else.
like to Jess, I'm like, can you just please be like Alison? She just does the
That's
work
what you say.
required.
Dude, best thing you'll do if you're at palm her off to someone else, and then she'll hate them and come back, or she'll be like, okay.
Or
this
she
is
used to
cool.
train with Berkman.
Fuck, he's a lunatic himself, but I love him.
Now I train with Berkman.
Yeah, I know. I see it. He's funny.
He's
a funny
funny.
guy.
He's funny. Fuck, sometimes I want to like give him a noogie.
Yeah. No, he's a crazy cat.
Yeah, he's a crazy cat.
All right, let's get into our scripted question.
All
We've got
right,
some
we've
really
been
good
ranting
information.
way too long.
Nah,
we just
dude,
need to
not
like
much
just
ranting
leave
there.
everything
Yeah.
and just be like, okay,
No,
back
that
on
was good.
task.
I
Scripted
felt like
questions.
there's something for guys on. I'm going to tell a lot of guys I used to race with to listen to this, and I'm gonna try and post it on the endurance training subreddit.
Ooh, very
But then they might
underground.
ban me because you can't self-promote, which has happened before. Sorry, Reddit. First question: 5 favorite athletes. And I know we spoke about this last time, but you said it yourself. You wanted to come in a bit more.
Yeah. So
prepared.
I have a narrative behind me answering these questions
Yeah,
this
nice.
time.
Okay,
So
cool.
last time I was so annoyed that I wasn't prepared for this,
Yeah.
and it was 5 favorite rappers last time, I think. I think
slightly different, but we'll
maybe.
get to that. We'll get to that.
Anyway, I was so unprepared and so like I was just like, this
Yeah,
person.
people don't know how serious that
Yeah,
is.
and I was
That-
like,
our
fuck,
show
I actually had
is
to
that
think about
question.
this. So as soon as you were like, would you like to come on the podcast? And I was like, yes, man, I would be absolutely honored to do that. I was like, okay, I'm going to take this seriously. I'm going to have my athletes
Yeah, nice.
ready in order, and I'm going to tell you why.
Yeah.
And I was like, my 5 favorite athletes. Okay. So I don't really care much for sport.
Yeah.
I just don't care. And I think anyone who's high level in an athletic thing is, you should give them some sort of like, wow, nice work, because they've put their life aside and they're the best of the best at what they do. Okay. So the thing that makes an athlete my favorite athlete would be if they can do more, if not lots of things.
Okay,
Right.
cool.
So with that being said, I honestly couldn't come up with 5 people that
Okay.
I think tick that boxes, who I know of.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I
of
found
course.
myself asking people like
Okay.
the answer to the question. I was like, hang on, this is my 5 favorite
Personal.
athlete. This
Yeah.
isn't anyone else. Like, and I was thinking maybe they'd give me an idea and spark something that I'd be like, oh, I forgot about that one. But like, I'm kind of like, this is my favorite athletes that I know. And there's not even like, I think I've got 3 on the list in my head that I
That's
wrote in my
fine.
phone.
That's fine.
Okay. So first of the 5 favorite athletes is
Yeah.
Brooke Ence. Brooke Ence?
Brooke Ence.
The CrossFit chick.
Oh, yeah.
I'd say this is how little I know about sport.
No,
I don't even know how you
I
pronounce
like
her name. The reason why I like her is
She has a
she
podcast,
has more than just an amazing CrossFit athlete. She's like an actor. She's like good on media with all that sort of shit. She's like got this look about her that is like you actually look good and not just like a guy who's
Dude,
a
some
chick.
of those CrossFit chicks are very appealing.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And like she looks good, but the thing about her is she can do so much shit. Like I watched this thing on YouTube with Jess like the other week, which was like comparing different disciplines of weight sports in the female. And they had like a powerlifter, a bodybuilder, a weightlifter, and her. And she like aced most of the things, even though it wasn't her discipline. I was like, she can do everything. Like, is there anything this chick doesn't have
very special
or can't do? Like, she's not one of those athletes who's going to finish being an athlete and then it's like, what do I do now? I've literally not gone to uni. I have nothing in my life. She's got like everything.
Heaps of things.
And that's why I'm like, oh, wow, that's fucking
That's
awesome.
impressive. No, and also shout out to you. We haven't had a female in someone's top 5, so a bunch of sexist pigs, I guess.
Yeah, fucking sexist pigs.
No, I'm kidding, guys. But let's mix it up, hey?
Yeah, so
Look, I
second
haven't put one in either.
athlete, and certainly not the best at their discipline or sport, but it's got to be Eric Helms. Like he's a
Okay,
pro,
yeah, nice.
pro natural bodybuilder,
Yep.
and no one even knows about natural bodybuilders. So like that's the thing. The reason why Eric Helms
And
is
to look like really good as a natural.
because he looks good,
Yeah.
right? The thing why I think Eric Helms is amazing is because he has achieved a level of physique that can be defined as pro through what on the surface isn't like world-class, best in the world genetics, but just consistent, hard, smart work and loving the process and becoming like someone who really loves weight, like lifting shit and doing
Yeah.
everything about that.
How old is he?
I actually think he's like 30, 36.
Surely. Yeah, cool. It would
Something
make
like
sense
that.
why he looks like
I
that.
remember him saying, and the other reason I like Eric is 2 more reasons. He's insanely smart. Like the guy has a fucking PhD, but even like he's not just book smart. The way he approaches logic and relevancy and all these sort of things is just like, oh my God, this guy, I feel so stupid. But he's also so calm and professional, never calls anyone out, so balanced, so intelligent and all that sort of jazz. But the last thing and the thing that really makes him cool is that he's so humble. I asked him, I met Eric at the Sports Nutrition Australia conference in the Gold Coast at the start of this year. And his talk resonated with me like nothing else. It was basically like being fixated on MyFitnessPal. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, this guy is... I mean, obviously I knew of Eric. Like I've known him from ages.
But you didn't know him on that level.
Yeah. And then when I said to him, I went up to him and I was like, mate, I love that. And he wanted to have a chat. He was like, thank you
Oh,
so
that's
much
awesome. That's
for like
awesome.
saying these words. And then when I said, would you love to come on my podcast? Thinking like, here's my podcast where I record it from like a 2011
Yeah.
MacBook Air
Yeah.
that I only use for podcasts. Because for some reason I can't get my microphone to work into my massive Asus that I've got. Fucking, that was
fuck.
annoying.
There's your
The
first
level of
problem.
frustration that dealing with that. So anyway, I decided to just be like, okay, I'm going to dust off the old Mac just for the podcast.
Yeah, respect.
He was like, I would be honored. That was his
Oh, really?
response.
Fuck,
and when we
that's
did the
awesome.
podcast and I posted on Instagram, he reposted it with captions like, I was so honored. Like,
Oh,
and
fuck,
I'm like,
what a guy.
who is this guy? Like,
Just a
what?
good man. And
Like,
it
and
makes
I've
you wanna
had
pay
other
it forward
people
and
who
be a
I'm not
good
going to
bloke.
name who are high
dude.
level who I've had on the
And they tell
podcast.
you, okay.
And like they do the podcast, and I'm obviously very grateful that they give me that time of day, like 100%.
And they repost
But they never repost it. It's like they're trying to hide it.
Dude,
and I'm just like,
dude, you're
I'm like,
talking to the fucking
you came
king of
on the
that shit.
podcast, so
Yeah.
I'm thank you.
Yeah.
But it's
Let's
bitter at
get
the
it out
end.
there, you
It's
know?
bitter at the end because you're like, why are you like hiding this? Like, and I
Oh,
know the
dude,
podcast is good.
I'm gonna tell you
I've
a
done some
cracking
shit.
story after this when we're off air.
I've
about
done
this
some
situation.
shit episodes, right?
Yeah.
And I'm by no means a good podcaster.
Yeah.
Like this James Walsham from New Zealand, the kid's like 19 years old and he's way better at podcasts than me. Like, you know,
Dude, you don't have to be good at
like
it. You
I
just put something
stutter
out there.
and I can never get my point across and I talk too much. So, but like I know that some of these episodes were fantastic,
Yeah.
and they would just. So it's not like they're not posting them because they're shit. They're
There's
posting
something
because they're
going on.
good.
So I'll give people the benefit of the doubt, and like for example, in his situation, Eric Helms, like he's got a lot of content he's putting out there.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't want to sort of. You feel like you're adding to someone's. You don't want it to convolute what you're putting.
No,
out
he
there.
posted
That's what I'm
it.
saying.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
which is good, but
Yeah.
that's why I sort of give some people benefit of the doubt.
Oh,
'cause, like,
no,
they're adding
dude,
to
I'm not
ours.
even. No.
But anyway,
I
I've got
disagree.
2 stories for you after this.
So Eric Helms is the
Which
second.
will be funny. Yeah,
Eric
Eric Helms.
Helms.
Yep.
Shit, I can't even remember the third one. Fuck, my phone's over there. Doesn't matter. I'll remember. So the last.
I'll get it for you.
There's one more. There's potentially two. I don't know how generous I'm feeling with my. I can't even remember that. I can't even believe that I'm like not remembering who was on my list. I need to get my phone out. That's horrendous. Nice memory, bro. Oh yes.
Who is
it? Lee Priest.
Oh, do you met Lee Priest on the walkway bridge that crosses Darling Harbour? You know when you go on cash from the city?
Yeah.
Top guy.
The reason why I like Lee Priest. Okay, firstly, his physique is like that classic thing. And I'm no bodybuilder. I think it's cool and everything, but I think his physique's really, really good. The thing that I like about him is he's just no bullshit, and I like his sort of I'm not referring at all against his political things that he says politically, and I think that you only want to comment on things that you are really an expert in, because there's always someone who knows more than you, and you definitely don't know enough. So I'm not referring to any of that stuff. I'm not referring
just Lee
everyone.
Priest the athlete.
It's Lee Priest the athlete, but just his mannerisms that he's like, I don't give a shit. This is logical. You guys are overcomplicating. Stop giving a fuck. Like, just take a chill pill. Like, just relax. And I saw a YouTube video of him training when he was in his prime, and there was a voiceover, and he said something along the lines of like, all these people want to get shredded so they can have a big jawline, and life's just, there's more to life than that. Like, I'd rather be fat and eating KFC than have a jawline and have chicken breast and broccoli all the time, and like just that sort of thing. And how he's just so like, he just says it so calmly, and he's just like, it's just such a these people are Fruit Loops worrying about this shit. And he's just this guy who's just this ridiculous bodybuilder. He's just there, and he's just like, I like KFC, and I'm just like,
fucking good on you. That sounds like Dorian Yates is sort of like that. Like there's more to life for him than bodybuilding.
I haven't heard much about Dorian Yates, but
I would say listen to his ep on Rogan, but there's
I actually did listen to that. I've honestly listened to like 2 Rogan episodes in my life, and I listened to like a bit of that, and I was like, he's talking about only doing one hard set in a workout or something like that. And I was like, I can't listen to this.
Go to like older Dorian Yates YouTube vids,
okay,
and you'll find some gold in there. Like he has a posing routine from like, I don't know, the 90s or something, and it'll get you pumped up. Like I don't care what sport you play. It'll get you pumped up. Yeah. And that one's for the listeners too. All right, cool.
Do you want me to give one more, or are we running out of time? Okay. So the last one is Jack Moyer, and he's a pro downhill mountain biker. No. The reason I like Jack, I did. He was in the last time. The reason why I like Jack is because he's just a dude from the Central Coast. But I know him personally. I used to like ride with him, and he was always just so good at it. Like I would try and be even like ballpark fast, and he would just hit sections that were just the most sketchy thing. Like if you saw, okay, I don't think many people realize how sketchy a downhill mountain bike track is in real life when you see it in real life.
Crazy.
Like how steep they are. Like you see pictures and you're like, oh, he's riding over a bunch of rocks. And like that's a pretty big gap. But when you see it in real life and like get proportions and how steep something is, you're like, fuck, that's just like so intense, right? And I had a group of mates who we used to ride with, and I was doing a few national races, like the state series, and I was never that good, but I tried. And we got all so competitive that the thought of safety just went out the window. And I would like punish myself at a race weekend. And I'd come back to school on a Monday and have cuts everywhere, and I'd be limping like I'd just done like some death leg workout. I couldn't walk. And this guy, Jack Moyer, would just hit sections. He would come into sections faster than anyone, and he would hit them without even thinking about touching his brakes. And it just takes so much balls to do that. And because I just knew him personally, and he's just such a humble, nice guy, like, and now that he's doing what he's doing, and he went through, like, the thing is, when you're a kid and teenager, you don't think about what it takes to get there in terms of, you have to self-fund a lot of your racing or your sport. Like, you're putting uni and a career to the side, like, all these sort of things. Like, he did that, and now he's, like, one of the best downhill mountain bikers in the world. And for the reason that, A, he has balls, B, he was just a humble, nice dude from the Central Coast, and C, that he's like managed to pull that off is something I take my hat off to. And that's the thing, like every athlete goes through that more or less.
Oh, for sure.
But because I know him personally, or I haven't spoken to him I haven't seen him in person for years, right? But I still knew him personally, and we still talk like very rarely. That's why I'm like, I take my hat off to that guy.
Yeah, that's good to have the personal touch in there. I like that.
Yeah. So I don't have a fifth. I refuse to give you a fifth.
I like it. Good, good top 4. Next question. This is the rap one, and we probably did ask you, but I'm going to ask it again because things change.
You tell me this would be on the...
Because we only prepare people for one.
Fuck.
Because we
I
like
haven't
the
thought
sort of
about
off the
that.
cuff, don't worry.
Oh my
and
God.
I won't ask you the death row meal one because we've already
No, you can
covered
ask
that.
me, but I'm going to do a shit job. But it may...
It doesn't matter though. That's why it's off the cuff.
Okay.
All right. Who is a rap artist you would have rap about you, and what would they say?
Who is a rap artist that would rap about me? And what would they say? I want to say someone who's like hella aggressive and like some big dog like Biggie Smalls, who's like, you know, been through the struggle and everything. But here I am, like little white kid who grew up in the eastern suburbs of Sydney and used to get dropped to school to Scots.
Awesome.
And I'm like, it just doesn't work.
Nah.
But I think with that being said, like given my circumstances being very privileged growing up, comparatively...
Some may say the definition of white privilege.
Yeah, literally, yeah. But comparatively speaking to some of the people who I grew up with, I think I personally have shown a good ability to stick to something I say I'm going to do. Now, it's fine to talk about stuff and never pull through with it. And I do that. Everyone does that. I fucking said I'm going to do this and that, and I never actually get around to finishing it. But I think my track record of, you know, committing to something and pulling it through and actually doing it is leaps and bounds ahead of most people who I know from my like eastern suburbs, you know, that younger age bracket.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that people in that bracket from this demographic have a shockingly poor ability to just commit to anything. Like it's an all talk thing.
Well, they've got that safety net behind it.
It's just almost like this culture is like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I want to do this. But when it comes down to crunch time or doing something about it, it's just like there's always something. It's just like, don't talk about it if you're not going to put in the work.
Correct.
And
I
think
a lot of people think starting something is creating an IG for it.
Yeah, but then like even creating an IG is like
no, I'm saying
like every
just
trainer
starting up the Instagram handle.
But even still, like every PT out there is like, I want to be an online coach, and every PT out there puts it in their bio. It's just like, do you
gotta be on the gym floor
know?
first.
Not just that, but it's like you're going to have to let go of some safety and some clients and some gym floor to be able to put in what's almost like a full-time job for ages to even start earning money. It's like, they're not going to do that. It's like, don't talk about it. You're not going to do it.
Correct. And what would they say? So who is rapping about you?
Fuck. I'm still going to say someone like Biggie Smalls. Because I like him and like he left a legacy. And I would like one day to be a person who makes a difference, positive impact on the planet.
I like that.
You know?
Okay, so
I would
say
like to
something
do that.
like white privilege, but got that sort of not grinding mentality because I hate that word, but saying along those lines.
I'll put in the work. Like, if I need to prove myself, and I want to prove myself, I'm 100% confident, as arrogant as this sounds, that I will just do whatever it takes to like make sure that I do good work. Good work.
And Biggie would say that.
Yeah.
Who else
I
do you
think he would
listen
say
to
that.
at the moment?
In terms of music, these days I don't listen to any music because I just listen to podcasts all the time.
Yeah. Don't you mix up like when you're a bit? I suppose you don't train with headphones. Do you train with?
Yeah,
headphones?
I do actually.
How? What do you get G'd up for a big set?
Okay, I am very meticulous with the way I look at my music for training, and this is how I do it. It's much like as methodical and as laid out and as statistically sound or whatever you want to call it as possible. I periodize my use of Parkway Drive. And
what's your favorite Parkway Drive song?
They're all good. See, Parkway Drive is the one artist or band or whatever you want to say that you know how like with me it's like I have no favorite artists. I just like songs from different artists, and I like different categories, and I like different styles of music. And I used to like DJ myself, and I used to be into that dark techno thing. And shout out to Jensen Interceptor, one of the best guys who I used to know, who now kills it in that. But Parkway Drive is a band that like pretty much every one of their songs I like at least. And I've been listening to them ever since I first heard one of their tracks in a surf DVD when I was 9 years old.
Dude, that's exactly what got me onto Parkway Drive. Mine was a bodybuilding DVD.
Yeah, and I felt embarrassed when I started listening to that. Like I was literally like, oh my God, I'm listening to Screamo music. Like, you know, all my friends don't listen to that.
They're just normal guys.
Man, I've gone to so many of their concerts. Like they're fucking awesome. But at the time, like I remember this is like when CDs were a thing. And I was with my dad in the city, and I was like, can I have this CD, Dad? And I was so embarrassed.
And he's like, that's dark.
Because he didn't even know what it was, but I was like, and then I would listen to it on my little Sony thing in my room, and I didn't have headphones. And
I actually might be 40 now, those
and
guys.
I was like, oh my God. And ever since then, Parkway Drive has been the one thing that G's me up. But now I have this awesome...
of your life.
Yeah, I have this one awesome playlist on Spotify, which is called Metal Mix.
Yeah, nice.
And it's a very, very tightly controlled playlist. But there are several other bands in there as well.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Parkway Drive is the predominant
What else is in there?
popular.
A bit of Metallica,
Oh,
bit
no,
of
no
Rage.
Metallica.
What about Fuel? Fuel gets me pumped.
None of
up.
those things. It's Amity Affliction, Parkway Drive, Bring Me the Horizon, although lately they fucking suck, in my opinion. Same with Amity Affliction. I don't know. There's just heaps of other ones. Bullet to My Valentine. Just that sort of shit.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And that
Nice.
fucking gets me going. I fucking kick the air and I'm
You
like...
get pumped up.
And I'm like, I'd go into a set and I'd be like, righto, let's fucking have it, you know?
Yeah.
Like one of those UK bodybuilders who just goes to failure every
yeah.
set. Like, I just get into that and
You're
I'm just
pumped
like,
up.
I'm 75 kilos and I'm going to train like a weapon.
Oh my God. Yeah, fuck. That was a good session.
Yeah.
All right. Next question is, and I feel like you have a pretty good answer to this, but if you don't, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's the Sure Challenge. If I could turn back time, what's something I would say? Speaking of good artists.
What's something I could say if I could turn
No,
back
what's something
time?
you would do if you turn back time? Yeah, sure. The song,
Oh.
If I Could Turn Back
Mate,
Time.
this is the thing with me. Like, people are like, you've heard of this band or this song or this
fuck,
movie.
man.
And I'm
Listen,
just like,
did
I
just
have
chose this
no
question.
idea what you're talking about, bro.
Everyone knows this
Like,
song.
I never got into mainstream music. I would never listen to, like... I've always been a weird kid. Like, look at my fucking haircut. I got a blue mullet. Like, and I wear TNs. Like, I'm a
TNs are
weirdo.
sweet, though. Angus and I are getting a soundboard. Speaking of upgrading podcasts. This chick, she's like 100 now.
Oh, I know. I've seen pictures of her. Oh, yeah, I've heard this song.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
like I don't even know. Yeah, okay. So if there's something I could say if I could turn back time.
Saying you changed, yeah.
Something I would change. I don't really regret anything that I've done because it's this experiences that lead you to where you are today, right? But I went to uni for 3 years to do something that I thought I would love. And I do love. Like, I knew... And I wanted to do this from, like, you know, from year 9, right? There was never like, oh, what are you going to do at uni when you're in year 12 and they give you your options? Like, I'm doing this. I already know this. I just need to get this mark. That was always the case. But I haven't done anything in the field of design. And I could be 3 years ahead of myself where I am now if I would just have known that nutrition was the thing. Yeah. But with that being said, these days, I know that me having design and nutrition under my belt is something that is going to increasingly be something that I can use and something that is going to... I'm probably going to look back on this in 5 years and say, I needed to do a degree in industrial design to be where I am today because this user-centered design thing is something that I feel like I can offer to the industry. I'm never going to be as smart as Dalton Frank. I'm never going to be as smart as Mike Israel. Like, I'm never going to be Brad Schoenfeld. But the user-centered design thing is something that no one's thinking about. That's the one thing that I have. I have design and I have nutrition.
So no regrets.
So while right now there's still an element of regret, and a year and a half ago it was like I just pissed away 3 years and I have $25,000 hex debt, which I still have not paid a cent of.
Fuck, good stuff. That's a lot of people are in that boat though.
Fuck me.
If you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Yeah, so that's the one thing that I wish I could. That's not something that I'd say though, but that's something that I wish. And I don't have any regrets with how I used to conduct myself. I don't really, man. Like, I just think you learn and you get to somewhere from what you do.
Nice. Look, usually if our guests say they have no regrets, Angus and I have to say something we've regretted, but I'm going to take that as there's a bit of regret there, so I'm not going to comment.
Well, of course, we've always like embarrassed ourselves.
Yeah,
I said something completely ridiculous. I said something about nutrition that was dumb, and but that's just like
it's
whatever.
just life.
It's just
life.
life.
You can't look. The question is just it's interesting to hear how people take it. That's why we chuck it in there.
No regrets.
And then no regrets. And then the last one is, do you have a party trick?
Oofed. I know I've got one. I literally just like... See, the thing is, I don't go to parties, mate. I don't have any friends.
It can just be like something where you're at the gym with Will and that, and you're like, oh, look at what I can do.
I am a person who is not amazing at any one thing.
Okay.
But I think I can do a few things
But
reasonably
can you
well.
pull out like a little trick?
No.
No little
Literally
tricks?
no.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Oh, I got one.
So
one.
everyone has something.
I can play the bagpipes.
Fucking dude, that's huge. All right, done.
Went to nationals for that shit.
Party trick.
Nationals.
Sick. Dude, that's fucking one of
I
the
play
best
the
party
bagpipes.
tricks I've had. Yeah, that's awesome. You should walk into training one day and be like, boys, you didn't know this side of me, and then you just play in the fucking bagpipes.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great party trick. All right, we'll end it there.
Beautiful.
Shout out what you got going on, what you got upcoming.
So many things. So Instagram at Mackenzie Baker _ Macabolic Podcast on iTunes and Spotify now.
Yeah,
I'm stepping it
nice.
up. I'm taking it seriously.
Nice.
You know, maybe I'll have another studio in the SCG in a year from now. Like
there's plenty of rooms.
maybe
I
I'll
don't
be
know
up
what they're doing
Rogan
up
level.
there.
Like, who knows, mate? But Macabolic Podcast on iTunes. I work for a nutrition company called Fortitude Nutrition Coaching. That's their handle on Instagram. And I have a Macabolic mini cut
Nice.
starting
this
up
is good stuff.
October 20. Okay. And this is like my flagship thing. And over the time, it's been refined many times. That's my flagship thing. And I think it's really good. And if you're interested in getting a big chunk of fat off fast and, you know, minimizing the risk of any sort of rebound stuff, because I try to teach you how to actually eat, then that's something for you. And of course, like, just hit me up on Instagram.
Yeah.
I love that shit. Like, I always remember that, like, I'm here to help
Yeah,
people.
for
That's
sure.
the goal.
And I gotta say, I know for a fact a lot of endurance athletes listen to this show. Hopefully they've listened to this episode. So reach out to Mac, because it was definitely something I, without really knowing, struggled with, and could have definitely helped me through a lot of circumstances in my athletic career back then. So yeah, make sure you reach out to Mac for a bit of info. Follow his stuff. It's very consumable. I got to say, like your stuff, and then, you know, Sean McGuinness, who works in my brother's gym. Anyway, very consumable.
I feel like I do, but I feel like I don't.
The name. Some of the, if you saw him, sorry, some of the stuff you guys put out on Instagram is extremely consumable. Like, it's one of those things you don't have to spend too much time going, oh, I've got to really read.
That's the thing, mate. Like, I'm not an expert at this, and I'm always trying to refine it. And there are definitely people doing better than me at that because they have more time, resources to dedicate to it. But that's the design thing. All right. So I've tried to make things consumable, and I think that's something that Fortitude Nutrition, the other guys at Fortitude Nutrition, absolutely kill. They make it consumable. They make people, you know, that you take that in. You think the Instagram, and I'm very grateful. It's very nice of you to say that. I'm very appreciative. But like, that's the thing I think most people are missing.
Well, I think everyone's trying to flex on their peers. But
yeah, they're trying to be like, look at me. I know about a
picture.
fucking cell.
Yeah.
It's like, you should know about that.
Yeah.
But
But
like,
your clients don't.
yeah, your clients don't give a fuck. And sometimes and the thing is, like, I'm not perfect. Like, sometimes I'll go a little bit too complicated and say a big word, and I'll look back and I'll be like, that was me just trying to boost my ego and make myself feel better than everyone else in the industry. Like, you're not helping people there.
Yeah.
So
there you go. We'll end on those beautiful words. All right, guys, episode 150 in the can. It was a good one. Look, episode 300, maybe they'll be in like 2021. I'm curious to see where we'll go there together, us and our guests. And maybe we'll still be here. Maybe we'll be next door at the football stadium. Anyway, thanks for everyone for tuning in.
Thanks,
see you
guys.
guys next time.